The bright lights of the studio glinted off the polished floors, and the familiar laughter of a live audience filled the room. Drew Barrymore's show had always been known for its light-hearted charm, celebrity guests, and heartwarming interviews. Today, however, the air felt different, charged with tension just beneath the surface. Valerie Bertinelli walked in with her usual radiant smile, dressed elegantly but casually enough to blend into the laid-back vibe of the set. Cameras rolled as she waved to the audience, who cheered enthusiastically. Drew, as animated as ever, bounded over to greet her. "Valerie!" "It's been too long. I can't believe you're here," Drew said warmly, hugging her friend-turned guest. Valerie smiled politely, returning the hug, but there was a subtle tightness in her jaw, a flicker of unease in her eyes. The producers and crew had noticed it, whispering quietly behind cameras. There was an undercurrent today, a spark that something might go wrong. The segment began innocuously enough. Drew asked Valerie about her recent projects. The audience laughed at her anecdotes, and the energy seemed normal. But then Drew shifted gears. "So, Valerie, we have to ask. There's been a lot of buzz about your comments regarding Hollywood politics. Some people think you've been a little outspoken lately. Care to clarify?" Drew's smile didn't falter, but her eyes were sharp, curious, probing. Valerie's smile tightened. "Well, Drew, you know me. I just say what I think," she replied cautiously. Drew leaned forward as if digging for more. "But some people have called you controversial. That must be stressful, right? Do you ever regret saying certain things?" The tension in Valerie's shoulders became more noticeable. The audience clapped politely, sensing the slight friction. The cameras, unbeknownst to the audience, captured every micro-expression, the subtle raising of eyebrows, the twitch of a hand, the way her eyes darted briefly to the floor. And Drew continued, her tone playful but insistent. "There are rumors that your disagreements with certain co-stars were less than friendly. Care to address that?" The pause stretched longer than it should have. Valerie's lips pressed into a thin line. Her hands, usually so animated when she spoke, rested stiffly on her lap. Something in her demeanor suggested she was weighing whether to respond or to walk away entirely. "Drew," she said slowly, her voice calm but edged with warning. "Sometimes interviews can take turns we don't anticipate. I came here to share my projects, not to relive gossip." The audience tensed. Even the crew could feel it. Drew blinked, momentarily caught off guard by the sudden seriousness. Valerie's gaze locked on Drew's. There was a spark in her eyes, a mixture of hurt and defiance. Something had been triggered, and it was about to boil over. Before anyone could intervene, she stood abruptly. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I think that's enough for today," she said, her voice steady. Commanding, final. Gasps echoed through the audience. Drew's smile faltered. The moment froze like a suspended heartbeat. Valerie turned on her heel, walking swiftly toward the exit, leaving stunned silence in her wake. Cameras continued to roll, capturing every step, every shocked expression. The cheerful ambiance of the show had shattered in an instant. Backstage, producers scrambled. What had just happened? And more importantly, would the fallout hit social media like a wildfire before the segment even aired? The storm had begun, and no one in that studio could predict just how explosive it would become. Valerie's exit sent ripples of shock backstage. Crew members whispered frantically. Producers called urgent meetings, and Drew sat frozen in her chair, unsure whether to continue the show or cut to a commercial. In the green room, Valerie sat alone, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. She could hear the muffled chaos outside. Crew running, producers debating, the low hum of panicked phones. But she remained calm, her breathing measured, as if steeling herself for the storm she knew was coming. What had triggered this? It wasn't just Drew's questions. It was the way the conversation had brushed over boundaries, the subtle digs, the insinuations that touched a nerve she had long buried. Years in Hollywood had taught her how to endure, how to smile, how to laugh. But sometimes even the strongest facade cracks, and today hers had. Meanwhile, Drew sat in the host chair, fingers drumming nervously on the desk. She had not expected this. In fact, part of her was still processing whether she had crossed an invisible line, or if Valerie's reaction was simply dramatic. "Cut the segment!" a producer finally yelled, breaking the tension. "We can't air this like it is." The cameras were repositioned. The live audience was distracted, murmuring, buzzing with speculation. Social media would explode once this segment hit clips online. They always did. Every celebrity misstep, every emotional outburst, became fodder for trending hashtags. Back in the green room, Valerie's phone buzzed relentlessly. Messages flooded in. Friends checking on her. Fans expressing shock, tabloids already speculating. She ignored them all. She had made a choice. To leave with dignity, rather, than engage in a narrative she did not want to participate in. But her heart pounded. Because leaving the studio didn't erase the conversation. The questions Drew had asked, and the subtle challenge behind them, would linger. They would follow her in headlines, whispers in the industry, and even in her own reflections late at night. Finally, a crew member approached her cautiously. "Valerie, are you okay? Can we talk?" Valerie looked up, her eyes cool and measured. "I'm fine," she said. "I just need space. Sometimes people push too hard. Sometimes it's better to walk away before you say something you can't take back." Back in the studio, Drew rehearsed what she might say to calm the audience and salvage the segment. But even she could sense the fracture, the invisible tension that had broken the usual charm of her show. Outside the studio, the Los Angeles sun was beginning to set. The golden light illuminated the street where Valerie's car waited. Engine idling, she slid in, exhaled deeply, and gripped the steering wheel. The storm wasn't over, it had just begun, and the world she knew would be watching. By the time evening rolled around, clips of Valerie's abrupt departure had already begun circulating online. Social media exploded with speculation. Fans and critics alike dissected every frame. The tight jaw, the glare, the chair scraping the floor. News outlets splashed headlines, some sympathetic, others sensational. Backstage, Drew sat in her dressing room scrolling through the flood of comments. Some messages supported her curiosity, others criticized her approach. She leaned back in her chair, a mix of regret and realization washing over her. Perhaps she had gone too far. Or perhaps she had simply exposed the truth. Sometimes celebrities aren't ready to face the narratives others construct for them. Valerie, meanwhile, was at home trying to unwind. But the tension lingered. She knew the fallout would be relentless. Calls from publicists, agents, and even friends poured in. Each one wanted her reaction, her statement, her take. And yet, she remained silent. Not out of pride, but because she knew this was a moment to control, not react. That night, she posted nothing. She didn't comment on the controversy. She let the story breathe on its own. And that decision created an even greater suspense. What would she say next? Would she address the incident? Or would she let the media frenzy die down while keeping the upper hand? The next morning, Drew tweeted a subtle message. "Sometimes conversations go places we don't expect. Always learning." Fans speculated. Was it an apology? A subtle nod to Valerie? Or simply reflection? Valerie's silence became the story itself. Every outlet, every channel, every gossip site speculated. The suspense built day after day. Would she return to Drew's show? Would there be reconciliation? Or had a rift been created that even time couldn't mend? And somewhere, behind the scenes of Hollywood, those watching from a distance, other stars, producers, even Valerie's fans, waited. The tension, the drama, the suspense, it wasn't just about a studio clash. It was about power, control, and the moments when human emotion breaks through the polished veneer of celebrity life. In the end, the world realized one truth. Sometimes, the most riveting stories aren't scripted, they're lived. Raw and unforgettable.